I'm so excited. This is the first time that I'm doing it that it actually works. Okay, good. So, again, everyone that is in the panelists or attendees, on the right, top right, you have speaker view. If you want to just see me, just press the speaker view. So you'll see only the person that is talking and not everybody like in a gallery or anything like that. So the subject of today is irrational thinking patterns. Irrational thinking patterns, or you can say that in order to create this higher vibration, I know a lot of people here are working on their personal development. In order to create this higher vibration within ourselves, we have to find the right balance. Now, the right balance between the four bodies means that we cannot only count on one of our bodies. It means that we have to count on all of our bodies together. So we have the spiritual body. In other words, how much we are connected to our spiritual aspect, spiritual side. Understand that the human journey is a very, very short path. We have the emotional body. In other words, anything that has to do with the baggage that we carry with us, how much control we have over our emotions versus how much our emotions have control over us. We have the physical body that most people already understand what needs to be done, only we're very much in our comfort zone, so we don't really do anything about it. That's pretty much about fasting, about eating right, about exercising, about taking additives if you have that belief that you need it, and stuff like that. And the last body is the body that a lot of people neglect, but is also considered to be the most powerful body, which is the mental, the logic, the thinking. Now, an average human being, an average person thinks a lot. Some people don't even sleep at night because they just keep on thinking and thinking. And then the problem begins that we believe our thoughts. So we have a thought. It can be a thought about the future, about the illusion of the future that hasn't really happened yet. And then we believe that thought, and that creates some sort of stress and tension. Okay, it can be anything mild, like I am now in my car and I'm going to be late to a very important meeting. But it can also be something that is devastating, like I didn't check my facts. I created an argument with the love of my life over nothing at all because I believed that she was, I don't know, chatting online with her ex, and because of that belief and I didn't check my facts, now I created an argument with her, and that reminded her of other things from the past, and then everything just exploded. Now, a lot of our thoughts are about the future and about the past. So we're analyzing the past that we didn't really enjoy, and we are looking into the future, which is an illusion, and we think that something is going to happen in a certain way. But when we become more aware of our thoughts, we understand that things don't exactly happen exactly like we think they're going to happen. It's exactly like when we have an issue or a problem in our life, and we think we have a solution, and we are trying to think about the same solution in loop thinking, because we never try to get out of the box, until one day we stop, and then we go for a walk with our dog, or we take a break from everything. We let it go, the obsession with trying to find the solution. And then the solution just presents itself. We wake up in the morning with an idea. Somebody else, the universe sends someone to synchronize the idea to us that we thought, that we now discovered that we didn't think about it in that way, but poof, something appeared. So when I'm talking about irrational thinking patterns, if you become aware of these, you can say, few categories that we're going to talk about, if you become aware of them in your own life and understand why they're creating unnecessary anguish or stress in your life, you'll be able to elevate the frequency of your mental body by releasing unnecessary overthinking and getting into a more mindful and meditative way of life. Now, of course, like everything, we're going to begin by recognizing them. And then I'm going to talk to you about a few solutions. I'm going to ask the panelists, the people that are in front of us on the video, to share a little bit about their own experience. And I'm going to ask a few people to just tell us really, we're going to analyze it together as a group. We're going to analyze any negative thing that happened in their life, and we're going to see how some of the categories of the irrational thinking patterns began, why they began. So I'm going to begin with the simplest one from the different 8 ones that we're going to have here. And this one is called need. Let's write it. Ariel, tell me if you can see this board.
Yeah.
Good. So The first one is called need, and I'm going to read to you some examples. So, need, it means, for me personally, this happens to me personally more often than I'd like to admit. The sensation of a need. I need to get more subscribers on my YouTube channel. I need to get a bonus this year at work. Sometimes we try to stimulate ourselves by action, by having an inner guidance and creating a stress of needing. For example, I need to have a diet, or I need to have a guidance or direct connection to my inner guidance. Now, because we are creating this need, we're creating an anguish. It creates a sort of stress because we're not really fulfilling that need. For example, I need to live a pranic living, a breatharian lifestyle. I need to meditate every day. I need to be a better father. I need to be a better wife. I need to be a more supporting son. I need to call my mom more often. Now, when you say that, and we have this belief in our head, when we say that we need something, it creates a sensation of a lack. Now, we do it, we say it because we thought that it's going to motivate us to do something better. We thought that creating this need will actually create a motivation, but what it's doing is actually pressuring us. And that's why it's called an irrational thinking pattern. Now, feeling a need is very common. We have to learn to distinguish between an actual need to one that will simply add stress and irrational thoughts of unnecessary type. So I'll give you another few examples. I need to improve myself. I need to be in a certain weight. I need to be a productive person. I need to be productive with my time. So I want you, the panelists and the attendees, I want you to just write in the chat a few examples of something that you have a need for. Because what I want is for you to recognize these own irrational thinking patterns in your own life and not just listen to the examples that I'm giving, because that's very specific. I need inner peace and joy. I like that. I need to be productive. I need to find a purpose. That's right. When you say I need to find a purpose, what you're actually telling your subconscious is that you are purposeless right now. But who knows, maybe the purpose of you being in the present moment right now is to wait to get that thread of excitement that will pull you closer to where you need to be, because excitement is what we need to follow when we're talking about being in a higher vibration. Especially, I know because I've been a breatharian for more than 5 years now, and I'm guiding this lifestyle. And I know that if you want to integrate a very mindful state of mind, because otherwise we turn to food. We turn to food, you know, because of emotional baggage, because the day was bad, because everything becomes a celebration. But if you want to get into that high vibration, you have to be tuned into the now moment and become aware of those thoughts. I need to get the job done and delivered to my boss. I like that. I need to create content for my courses. I like that too. I need to write my third book, okay, for example. Somebody started a screen share. I'm going to just cancel that. Kyle Stock, you started a screen share. I'd like you just to stop it. Hello? Okay, good. Back. Second one. I need to go to work every day. I like that too. The second one is called thoughts of all or nothing. Okay? Now, this one is created from the dual way of thinking. You probably, if you're familiar with my work, you understand that right now the Earth's frequency is moving between the 3D and the 5D. Now, most of the people who are listening to me right now, you're like-minded, what we call light warriors, people who are actually, usually it's souls that come from somewhere else. People who have a deeper seeking and understanding because you have a recollection of a different type of life. The type of people that understand that we can create a heaven here on earth, and therefore your vibration is a little bit higher. We can talk with different words and understand each other. We can talk about things like existence of aliens or conspiracy theories or about health or about, I don't know, anti-vax, like all these type of things. Now, thoughts of all or nothing are from the black or white thinking. That occurs when we think about something as black or white without the different shades of gray. That means that we have a tendency to measure without an arbitrary scale and sometimes eccentric. For example, I failed my test and therefore I'm a failure and I will never succeed in anything else. Another example is you're either with us or against us, which is something like a religious type of thinking. It's very black or white, it's absolute thinking. Again, making something that's completely absolute. Another example is right after you get fired or you have a breakup, then you have that sensation that life really just can't go on, you know? And then again, you're in that black or white. There is no shades of gray in any way. Like I like or I hate my body. It means that I don't like a part of my body. It's either I like it completely or not. Good. So thoughts of all or nothing. I'll give you an example. When I have a workshop, if I have less than 15 participants, then in some way I have a irrational thinking pattern of saying to myself that I'm a failure. Something in my marketing didn't work, something in my YouTube videos, the sensation that I want to give more information, help humanity to ascend, all these things, I start blaming myself. Now, again, it's an irrational thinking pattern that I have in my mind. Who cares if it's 15 participants, 20 participants? I once had 55 participants as well. But that's the type of mental filter that I'm talking about. So I'm waiting for my panelists and for the attendants. I want you guys to give me any example you have about thoughts of all or nothing. This can be, I'm either pretty, I have a beautiful day, or I have a shitty day. It can be so many different things. People don't understand my work. It is unimportant and I'm a failure. That's right. So you can say to yourself instead, some people understand my work. I'm not a failure because I can get to some. I prefer to have a wonderful day. So that means that doesn't have to do anything with the subject that we're talking about, all or nothing. Prefer, it means that you're in the gray zone. It means you have a preference. And it's sort of like, this is a really good subject, by the way. When we're talking about the manifestation equilibrium or balance, like when Jesus healed someone, then Jesus put his hand on someone and he said, I know that God can heal you through me. I know, but I prefer that you will heal. I don't say, I'm with my ego, that I am a healer. So in other words, I'm accepting the yes and I'm accepting the no exactly in the same type of balance. And this is something very important when we're talking about manifestation, because sometimes we hold on to a thought that something has to happen. And then because we have this belief, we have a doubt and a fear when it doesn't actually happen. And then we lose it. The right balance is like, it's sort of like when a guy chases after a girl. So if he over chases her, she is not going to look back at him. But then he lets go and he finds that balance point in between too much, to show too much desire and wanting, and being completely, you can say, not ignorant, but ignoring her. That's the balance point I'm talking about. Good. Our next irrational thinking pattern, and I promise you in the end, all of them are going to close together because we're going to analyze events from your own life, and we're going to see how exactly every event happened in our mind, creating this rational thinking loop. Exaggerated generalization. When something bad happens to you and you decide that from this day forward, the thing is going to happen to you over and over and over again. Like people who say that they have bad luck, people who failed in creating a business and then they don't want to go and create another business. For example, if you're a very shy guy and you get the courage to ask some girl out, and then she refuses for some reason, and you reach the conclusion that no woman will ever like you, and then you are discouraged from ever trying that again. If you tried cooking something one time and burned it, and from then on you decide you cannot cook. If you tried a diet and failed and decided diets are not for you, or exercising is not for you because you couldn't find the right type of exercise. Take any negative outcome to any circumstance you might have had in your life and see how you generalized that outcome and see how that decision a long time ago has actually been steering your life. So this one is called exaggerated generalization. And I'm waiting for examples from you. This can be about racism or bias. This can be something that you tried and you failed and you never tried again. Mhm. A woman's work is never done. Okay, my marriage didn't work, so I'm a failure at relationship. This is a really good example. And I assume that this has been some sort of a trauma that has been following you for a while, and you define yourself by that irrational thinking pattern. And it's been so long that you've defined it that you completely forgot, but that it's just a belief that you started believing at some point, but you never actually checked the facts. Anna says all men are selfish. I can't trust anyone. That's really good. So that means somewhere in your life, something happened. It's either a man or a woman, I just got a message from Ariel. That's really good. I like that. Okay, let's go on to the next one because we have a few more to go. Next one is called mental filter. And I promise you, a lot of you are going to see this in your life. So when something bad happened to you, even if mildly bad, and you focus on it so much and you think about it so much until you become despaired. For example, somebody criticizes something small that you did at work, and you can't do anything else except think about that criticism and rerun the scenario over and over again. This is called a mental filter. Now, of course, you can understand why it's called a mental filter. It means that one thought, even though tomorrow you're not going to think about it, in a week you're going to completely forget about it. That one thought is going to repeat and repeat and repeat, and it's going to disharmonize everything about you. So, for example, like an insult, overthinking about something, panic or panic attack, or something that happened to you yesterday, but you're still carrying it with you today. Losing your keys, for example, or having a really bad beginning of a day. And then the whole day starts off sort of like crooked. It's sort of like understanding that the glass is half empty, much more than it is half full. So again, mental filter, anything small that happens to us, an insult at work, an argument with our baby, an argument with our wife or with our husband, that has been repeating in our life over and over and over again, and it really bothers us a lot. Waiting for some examples. I think people in YouTube are also writing examples. It's too bad because maybe they should join the Zoom meeting, but it doesn't really matter. So, waiting for mental filter. Who's the courageous first? Actually, Ariel, you can take the link for this Zoom meeting and put it in the chat in YouTube, and also put it in, okay, just put it there and tell if you want to join directly. Nobody can find another mental filter? Guys, I need you guys to give examples. Otherwise, it's just me talking, and then you'll be able to get only about 20 to 30% of the whole thing. Good. I love Brad so much. I can love anyone. I can't love anybody else. Yeah. So that's kind of being stuck on someone and not being able to, move him out of our head. That's really good. I get loop thinking when people betray me. So this can actually be something that is more like you want revenge in some way. So you kind of like get insulted and then you get emotional, and then the negative thinking only happens when you start, oh, why did they betray me? Why did I do wrong? Why are they assholes? Stuff like that. Good. These are all really good examples. Whenever I try something new, my wife makes a big fuss about it, and we start a big arrangement every single time. Well, Eric, I can really recommend that you learn the NVC, nonviolent communication, and you teach it to your wife, because that de-escalates a lot of arguments into something that is more like a discussion. Talking more about how we feel than blaming. Never using never, never using ever, because that will always bring back past memories. So we only focus on what we have right now, okay? Another example, because I had a bad phone call in the morning, the whole day is ruined. Exactly. So you're beginning to see why we're talking about creating a mental filter. What is a mental filter? What is the irrational thinking pattern that has actually caused it? Now, when we become more aware, we don't only become more aware of our breathing, of our emotional state, we become much more aware of our thoughts. We understand the connection between our thoughts and our life. Meaning we understand that the manifestation of life happens first from the thought and then from the heart. Now, when we become aware of these two things like mental filter, like needing something, it's not that it stops immediately, but every time we become more aware of it, we play a different game. Our vibration becomes higher. We don't surrender to this game because now we are aware of it. It's sort of like becoming aware of different sickness, of negativity that we have. Now, of course, we're all playing that game of slowly realizing, becoming more aware, becoming more spiritual, more open until we get unified with the one again, or going through the ascension process itself. So making or understanding these loops can really change your life. I know that this is hard to understand in just 1 hour, but if you listen all the way to the end, we'll take examples from your lives, and it's really going to summarize all together. Next one. This one is called rejection of the positive. Sounds cool, eh? The ability to make a neutral experience or even a positive one into a negative one is one of the mind's wonderful wizardry. This is a type of reversed alchemy that turns even gold into trash. For example, the way we react towards compliments. Try to remember a few times in your life where somebody gave you a compliment about your appearance and you thought to yourself that they have a hidden agenda and you didn't really believe them. The rejection of the positive is one of the most obstructive thought mistakes that could actually happen. We pay a heavy price for having it by being miserable and having a mental disability. In other words, we don't only take the thought or the positive intention that the person had, but we're actually translating it to something negative. Now, I know this one is a little bit more harder to see because this has to do with more specific people that do this all the time. Sometimes it can be people who are taking a lot more energy, people who see a circumstance and usually see the negativity in the circumstance and not in the positivity. And for this, I say, train your brain to see the positive. For example, I have a practice that I do every time I see a judgment or I hear a judgment, and that happens occasionally. I try to see who I gave that judgment to, and then I give that person 2 compliments in my mind. And I believe anybody can be complimented. Even Hitler can be complimented, being a good dictator, being a public servant for a while, stuff like that. So one is to neutralize the experience with that person. And the second one is to add something positive to it. So I'm going to continue because this one doesn't really have a lot of examples. So it was called rejection of the positive. And of course, in the end, I'm going to show you all of them together and we're going to analyze them. Next one, we have 3 more, maybe 4. This one is called jumping to wrong conclusions. But you probably think you already know this one because everyone is occasionally presumptuous and makes wrong assumptions. But this is not about assumptions. This is about jumping into wrong conclusions. Not once we act like we can read other people's minds and hurry to jump to a negative conclusion. For example, we assume that someone despises us and we are so convinced of it that we never actually bother to check the facts. Another example is that our partner gives us the frown and we immediately think, oh shit, they're mad at me. What have I done now? But in fact, they had a really bad day at work, but we're just so used to it, so we never actually check the facts. We hear a sound outside and we think it's a robber. We see our partner chatting with somebody and we think they might be cheating or we become jealous of them. We see somebody who's calling and then we think that we already know what they're going to talk about or how long it's going to take or how much energy they're going to take from us. So sometimes we judge them before it happens and we don't even answer that call. We jump to wrong conclusions all the time instead of really just checking the facts. This can again lead to irrational thoughts. Simply stick to the facts and make sure that you know the real facts and not the ones that you have been biased by your mind. So I'll give you an example. Right now, my wife and I have really serious baby sleeping issues. And my mind keeps telling me that this is not going to be solved. Why? Because it's been already 6 months and we've tried pretty much everything. Now, I know that we're both very unique individuals. And I believe that the soul of our baby is so sensitive that she chose us because we can endure this. Sleepless nights, having an infinite amount of patience and unconditional love and things like that. But I didn't really check the facts because right now my mind is saying it doesn't look like it's ever going to end. That's not a fact. Nobody based that fact. In other words, I didn't even check it. Who knows? It might end tomorrow. Who knows? It might end because right now she's iron deficient, so we need to give her something. Like there's a lot of things that we don't know but can be solved, immediately after this moment. We just don't see the solution right now. So this, again, it's called jumping to wrong conclusions. Sometimes we do this in an argument. Sometimes our ego does it in an argument because our ego wants to protect our belief of being righteous and right, instead of understanding that this is just an ego versus an ego argument, and everybody is right and everybody is perfect for where they are in their own experience. Anybody? Waiting for examples. What? Blackstrap molasses will correct anemia? Okay, I can understand that. Waiting for another example. From this one, I need at least one or two more examples. So I'm saying again, this is when we're jumping to wrong conclusions. It means that we didn't check our facts and we have an irrational thinking pattern that we're kind of stuck on without checking our facts. Any personal thought is by default wrong in a sense, because it is a perspective, not absolute knowledge. Yes, I like that. Now, what will happen if we become much more aware of this and we will check our facts? In other words, we stop creating the illusion that we know what's going to happen. Because what happens is that we judge humanity's future by understanding humanity's past. So we think that maybe there will be a third world war, or we think that it seems like things are actually degrading, like everything is becoming even more shit or lower frequency, or things are becoming worse on Earth. But that's, again, we didn't check the fact. There's certain things that happened in the last 20 years, like everything that has to do with scientific research and breakthroughs, like clearing out the ozone layer that was, nobody hears about it anymore, but there was a huge ass hole in the sky above the North Pole. And we fixed that, but nobody talks about it because people usually focus on the negative, on what's wrong. Thinking someone is mad about what I said when actually they were worrying about their dog and not listening. I like this one. Good. Next one. Attaching a negative label to ourselves and to others. Now, this is a more extreme manifestation of exaggerated generalization. Its essence, that the person creates a negative image for himself because of mistakes that he has done. For example, those that do this may believe that a person that has made a mistake is a very problematic person and tends to judge people by only one action that they actually did. And of course, we can't judge someone by just one thing without checking everything else. Again, jumping to wrong conclusions, which again creates some sort of criticism, bias, and unnecessary anguish because we keep on judging people and having too much overthinking, and then we're moving away from the mindful or meditative state that we worked on so hard to achieve. The last one for this course is self-attribution. And this is a really cool one. This is something that happens especially to young parents, but also to people who are super sensitive and take the world on their shoulders. So in this case, we assume personal responsibility for things that happen. This is the father of feeling guilt. We take on the burden of negative things, even though there is no actual reason or connection to us. We easily conclude that we might have done something to cause this thing or to prevent the thing that happened, while in fact, the truth is far from it. We had absolutely nothing to do with it, and obviously, there was nothing we could have done. This type of irrational thinking pattern is common amongst parenting and close relationships, where something happens to one person and the other irrationally thinks that they could have done something to prevent it. So for example, in our life right now, because we have a baby that's almost 1 year old, then obviously my wife, every time something bad happens, she thinks that it's her fault. She didn't do something, she overdid something, she didn't plan something. But sometimes, for example, babies just cry. And some people, very sensitive people, classified as 6 on a scale that maybe one day I'll teach you, are people that are very, very worried about the planet, about Earth. And again, we are using this thing called self-attribution, taking the burden of something bad that is happening without understanding that there's absolutely nothing we can do about it. Actually, if we think opposite, if we imagine and visualize a planet that is much more filled with harmony, then we don't have to worry about the oil spills, and we don't have to worry about the gases that they put in the clouds, because it's all about using our united consciousness to elevate the frequency of everybody else. And you have to understand, humanity works like a whole body. And in a body, only the brain cells are the ones that are pushing everybody forward. So in humanity, it's the scientists, it's the spiritual people, it's the people that have such a high vibration that they're living in a cave somewhere in the Himalaya mountains. But they are changing the planet and nobody understands how. But there's a flow that happens. So for example, you probably noticed that we've moved to a different place in the galaxy. There's different energies that are coming from the sun that are actually translated to something that happens within us. So people are becoming more aware, people are becoming more awake. And yet, a lot of us are so sensitive that we keep putting ourselves down and we're taking the responsibility for something that has never actually happened. So parental guilt is just one of these examples. Something that happened outside, something that happened in your government, something that you said to yourself, you know something? I should have gone to the streets and protested, like what they have in Venezuela or like what they have in France right now, or what they're probably going to have in the States at some point if your president is going to continue being the president and stuff like that. So I want some examples, and then I want the panelists to give me any sort of negative thing that happened in their life, and I want us to analyze it together. Now the ozone layer is healing, always parental guilt for me, letting go of feeling responsible for my husband and dad both committing suicide. Oh, baby, I'm so sorry to hear about that. Very freeing to finally let go of that. Again, it's an irrational thinking pattern. There's nothing we could have done about that, and it's not really our fault. But we keep thinking that it is, and then we get stuck again in a loop, thinking I had not done enough to stop my dog from dying of old age. Yes. And then you go through a process of forgiveness, of acceptance, of understanding that there is nothing that you could have done about that. Another example, as a kid, I thought I was responsible for my parents fighting. Yes, we do this a lot as children, and then it becomes a trauma. So I'm going to switch to the gallery view. It's on the top right. And I want one of the panelists that you can see the video. I want you to give any example of something negative that happened in your life. I just want you to raise your hand so I can unmute you. I know a few of you, but I prefer to work with someone that I don't personally know. So, Esteban Darogon. Hey, brother.
Hi.
So, could you please tell us an example of something that happened to you? Anything that you want to share.
Okay. It happened that I used to eat a lot, like overeating, and to the point where I felt really sick and really uncomfortable.
Do you mean binge eating? Like,
yeah.
did you eat emotionally because of things that happened in your life and you couldn't deal with it, so you had to take it out through food?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, could you tell me a very specific scenario where it happened? Like something that triggered that one day, or something that comes to your recollection much easier when you think about that?
When I think about having to make money, or
okay, so you thought about having to make money, you became stressed in some way, and then what happened, or the action that took place, is that you started overeating. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm going to put, I don't know, Ariel, tell me if you guys can see the screen that I just put on. I just put on all the different irrational thinking patterns. Can you see it? Good. So I want you to tell me all the things that he just said. Was there a need? Yes, there was a need. There was a need to make money, and that was the irrational thinking pattern, or need to impress someone, or need because society has actually taught us that if we don't make enough money, so that's a fear-based needs. Was there thoughts of all or nothing? Yes. If I don't make enough money, something is not okay, and therefore I have to go binge eating. Okay, so again, it's black or white. It's either if I make a little, it's not enough. So it's either that I make or I don't make at all. Was there exaggerated generalization? Yes, there was. Okay. I want you guys to write on the chat. I'm still looking at the chat. I want you guys to tell me, or maybe I can even, I don't want to stop sharing. I want to see everyone. I wonder if I can do both. So I'm going to unmute some of the panelists. I want you guys to tell me, Kyle, Marianne, Dory, Sarah, Esteban, Sandy, June, Lucas. I want you to tell me which one of the patterns that we talked about. I'm going to write them in the chat so you guys have them. You see here. So there's a need, there's a thought of all or nothing. Was there a mental filter? Not really, even though we didn't really recognize the pattern that was repetitive in that. He said that it happened more than one time. He said that it happens because of stress. Is the rejection of the positive? No. Jumping to wrong conclusions? No. Emotional thinking? No. Self-attribution? Also no. Okay, give me another example, something negative that happened in your life. We need to do at least 3 or 4 of these because it needs to somehow drill down and become something that your subconscious recognizes immediately. So it's much better that you give an example from your own life. I was hurt on the job. Dory?
Okay, I have an example. My example, and I don't know why I keep doing it. I had a traumatic brain injury back in 1989. And I still say I have a head injury, but I know better than to say that because I'm healing now. But I constantly go back to I have a head injury because I don't think as clear as I used to. Sometimes I stutter. There's a lot. I don't do mental math. There's a lot of things that I was in a coma for 3 days, and I don't know. It just really affected me. And for some reason, I keep saying, "Oh, I have a head injury." I use it as it's not really an excuse. It's actually the reason why I'm being the way I am, but I need to stop using that because I want to heal.
I understand. Okay, from the panelists, what do you think she has? I already wrote it in the chat. You can just speak.
Something,
Who is it?
I'm just turning the volume down, something.
Okay, June, do you have something to say? Otherwise, I'm going to analyze this myself.
Yeah, you got me now.
The mental filter.
Okay, why is it a mental filter?
Because she's seeing everything through that filter of thinking that's changing everything in her life. So she's looking at everything through that and thinking that everything isn't going to work because she had a head injury.
Absolutely. There's also a need, okay, to have that clarity. In other words, when we don't accept reality as it is. So even if we had a brain injury and we are struggling because we think we need to be as perfect as we were before, but now things have changed. So I'm actually arguing with reality. Now, this in no way is contradicting with going through a process of healing, because healing begins by first accepting something that we cannot change. For example, like the Christian prayer. What else? Are there thoughts of all or nothing? Maybe. It depends on the circumstances that she described, because sometimes it will be absolute, and then she might even blame herself or blame the head injury on anything else that happens. Arguments with the husband, loss of a job, not having enough patience for our children or for our colleagues or anything like that. It can happen. Rejection of the positive, I don't see that here. Self-attribution. Dory, do you feel like in some way the head injury is your fault, or you could have prevented it in some way?
Paused. Oh, there it comes. Because I got on a horse I didn't know, and I knew you never get on a horse you're not familiar with, and it had run away with people before, so it was my fault.
Okay, now we're talking about irrational thinking patterns. Do you think that it was your fault, or do you, in some way, I know that everything is supposed to happen for a reason. So there was a divine plan, and you had to walk through that divine plan. only because you can suffer through it and only because there is a lesson that you actually asked to learn. So you're actually, the self-attribution part is when you actually take responsibility by saying what you just said. So you have a belief that you could have prevented this, even though supposedly you didn't. If your guides wouldn't want you to go through this type of experience, they wouldn't have pushed you in that direction. You will immediately would have felt this pinch in your heart saying, don't get on this horse, don't get on this horse. You know, like some people get it before they go on a flight. So again, you're blaming yourself, I understand. But this is exactly why we're doing this exercise, to try to clean out as much traumas, to get into a higher acceptance and self-forgiveness for the things that we couldn't control, but also to understand our needs, our frustrations, everything that is negative in our life is a thought that we believe in. And we can actually translate, these are the top, I don't know, 8 or 9. There's a little bit more, but these are the ones that are the most repetitive, the ones that I actually see with my participants when we're working or doing one-on-ones and stuff like that. And when we recognize them, we know how to overcome them. Understand, wait a second, why do I need to be a perfect parent? Why do I need to be the perfect son? Okay. And then when I don't need, suddenly I can become that thing because there's no stress. Like when I was a kid, my mother never checked my grades, and I was one of the top of my class. I know that if she would have checked it, I would have had a need, and that would have created a stress because I would have wanted to impress them or would have an ego fight with other students, for example. But when they let go of the need, they allowed me to develop very freely and have my own abstract type of thinking and create an individual that is very persistent and you can say independent, persistent, and very powerful in his field, being able to autodidact or teach myself new things. So I want another example. Anna, good. You're from my Zoom meeting, the participants from Ecuador. Give me an example of something negative. How are you doing, Precious? Something negative that happened in your life. Anything.
Oh, just something that happened, something negative. Okay.
Anything. It can be an argument that happened 10 years ago. It can be a bus driver that wasn't patient enough and you were judging him in your mind. Really anything.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it probably wasn't, I came to New Zealand and everything was very new. So, and I think that it's my fault of how I spend the money that I had at that point. So I have this feeling that I've wasted the money by not being really careful with it. So I went and I think I blame myself. I studied and I took a huge student loan that now takes forever to pay out. So that is a bad experience to me because I had a job anyway. I should have stayed in the job, but I was kind of proud, or maybe I was too lazy. I decided, all right, go study. And I went into the field that is not mine. I know it is not mine. So I think that is a bad experience, but I do see how it is certainly a learning experience too.
What was your need? What was your need in studying this new thing? What did it serve? Did you try to become better, make more money?
Oh, I certainly was interested in the money, but I was also interested in the quieter job that I would not have to expense my like physical and emotional myself, to stretch myself that hard was physically and emotionally. And I'm talking about being a teacher because I mean, in New Zealand here, I was a primary teacher, and that is a very demanding job. Yeah, so because of how the system works. So I was really finding it really difficult. And I sort of wanted a quieter job, but I did want the job to be well paid and possibly have prospects in career, whatnot, of professional growth. And so it did not happen. It happened that I've paid so much for this accounting degree, but my brain really is not into maths. What was I thinking? I don't know. I'm more a humanitarian person. So yeah, and I still have this huge loan.
Okay, good. I found at least 3 or 4 different things. Let's see. So, of course, you had a need. The first need you had is to make more money, which is something that a lot of people have today. The second need that you had was a change in some way. You have self-attribution because you're still blaming yourself for making a bad decision, but your mental mind has already overcome this by saying that everything is perfect and there's a lesson that I learned from it and there was a reason for it, which is really good. That's one of the solutions. You had jumping to wrong conclusions because you thought you're going to make more money. You thought you're going to do what type of change and stuff like that. Now, why are you carrying this? How much does it bother you from 1 to 10 when you remember that? I would say emotionally. Because I do feel that you're blaming yourself a little bit, and that means that you're not completely over it.
Of course, because I'm paying it every time. I feel like I'm tearing a piece of myself, every month when I have to pay with my down payments. Well, it's probably at least 3, definitely, or 3.5 on a scale of 1 to 10. That it's
Would you say that this becomes a mental filter, that every month when you see the payment go down, you're like, shit, that decision I did a long time ago, why am I still carrying this, counting the months until it will be over, and you'll say, oh, I can breathe and I can be free of this, this, you can say self-attribution, because you're blaming yourself for making a bad decision because it was jumping to wrong conclusions.
I do feel like, well, I'm definitely checking out on the balance, and I do feel like, yes, I will be free. What that one is I do have saying that I will be free once I've paid it out. Yeah, I do have this feeling. Yeah.
Good.
It ties me down. I feel that it ties me down to, and it's limiting me. Of course, it is a limiting belief, and yeah.
Good. I like it. That was a good example. Now, what we just did is we reviewed all of them. We gave examples from each one specifically, and now we're trying to put them all together so you can actually do this on the day-to-day life. You can still do this with things retroactively, seeing where these things actually happen and why they don't actually serve us anymore, because we don't need to be the victim. But the best thing is to actually add another layer to your day-to-day consciousness. In other words, when you meditate, and you have that observer, you have the experiencer of life, and you have the observer of life. Now, you can say when I say I am much more the observer, but most of the time when I am active, when I am working, when I'm talking and engaging with people, I'm not the observer. I am the ego. I am the mental part. I am the mind that is actually speaking according to the belief systems that has been given down to me by my parents, by social standards and stuff like that. When I become the observer much more, first, I become much more objective. And second, suddenly I become aware of the thoughts. Now, a thought can just bump into your head. A thought is something that when you see that there's nobody around, you will have unique thoughts. A thought is something that comes from the subconscious or from the higher guidance. A thought can be a solution. I know as an artist, or every time I'm thinking about creating something like this, new type of workshops during the Brunner initiations, I go into a meditative state. I ask my brain, my higher consciousness, the higher self, for anything new to come that is good for the vibration of the people that are going to come to the workshop. And then I let go of the expectation. Okay, become aware of something that is supposed to come without the expectation of it coming, and then something will come. Now, if you have too much expectation, it won't come because you're creating a doubt and a fear. And we talked about it because we do it a lot. In other words, like Deepak Chopra likes to say, go flow with the easiest route, not the path of resistance. Yes. The easier it becomes, like in relationships, like with jobs. There's some jobs that we just argue and fight, and some of the relationships that we know they don't work for us. So the same thing in life. If something doesn't work, you need to see if there's a reason that it doesn't work, or if you are struggling to make it work because you have an irrational thinking of this is supposed to work. Like first time we date someone, or first time we go into business with someone, our intuition knows, the path is always lit on our path, God, creation, the universe, whatever. And we are the ones that are always straying because we think we know better in some way. So these irrational thinking patterns are going to help you when you navigate your own life. And I can guarantee that if you practice this and become more aware of your own thoughts, what you're going to eventually get is a meditative state on it all the time. So sometimes we meditate or we practice mindfulness only to achieve a certain frequency. But when you get into this lifestyle and you have more control over your thoughts, over your emotions. You're not becoming the victim of neither, you know, because sometimes we over-exaggerate in our emotions and sometimes we over-exaggerate in the way we think. Check your facts. Check that the proportion, there's proportion in your reaction to something, and not that you're overdoing it or over-exaggerating. Check if you need to feel that thing or if you really have checked the facts appropriately and stuff like that. So before we continue, and we're going to have a visualization because we have about, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes, and I want to have one visualization that has to do with manifestation. Next time we'll go deeper into a meditation that will take about 20-25 minutes. This time I wanted to check, I don't know if you guys were here last time. Last time we had over 100 attendants and something completely fucked up in the technical side, and we heard loops, and some people did, some people didn't. And this time we really checked, and I really wanted to start with a discussion before, because meditations, you know, you have some of my meditations online, and meditation is something that you can find, but these type of discussions are more important. They're more important for humanity right now. It's more important that you will practice a mindfulness state that really, because the way that the brain works is that there's two active networks. Now, for most of us, the minute we wake up, we start going into the beta waves of the brain. In other words, we begin waking up, conversations, or thoughts that are running. In a meditative state, or when we're sleeping, this network is activated. Now, this network becomes more intuitive. This network becomes more mindful, more in harmony. This is where we get downloads from our guides. This is where we actually feel that everything is fine because we become the observer itself. So the more we quiet this one, our thoughts, our overthinking, the more this one wakes up. So we can do this with the meditation. We can do this with taking psychedelics. We can do this with ayahuasca. We can do this in many shortcuts. But if we want to do this all our life, and I'm talking from a person that lives a complete Western life. I have another job as an IT engineer where I've been working for about 19 years doing that. I have a team. I'm completely in the mainstream in my work. But then I go home and I become this like spiritual teacher that travels the world and teaches people to get into this higher vibration that we understand. When you get into that higher vibration, a lot of other things happen. Like your body doesn't need as much food. Like you become much more aware and much more content. You accept the things that you cannot change. So a lot of people that go through this type of transformations, they go back home and then the universe forces them to make the changes that they've been postponing over and over until this day. They cannot unsee what they have seen. And I believe that we all want to get to that place where we see the things that the ego doesn't want to let go. But then when the shield of the ego is dropped and we become the observer and not the experiencer himself, we are able to see and fix and admit the mistakes that we have done. Now, before we move into this visualization, I want to just discuss one very, very short exercise that you guys can do with yourself that has to do with this type of irrational thinking patterns. Now, this is going to sound counterintuitive, maybe. You can guys go back to the speaker view if you want to see just me, and I'm going to just mute everybody just so we don't have some background noise. Goodbye, Esteban. Goodbye, Kyle. Goodbye, ZZ. Okay. This exercise is something that you can do at home. And again, in the beginning, it won't sound very rational to you, but I'm going to explain it because I understand that today, both sides of the brain have to understand. The logical side has to understand, and also the abstract and the spiritual side. Now, when we are trying to refrain from having a negative thought about ourselves, for example, right now, because of my baby's sleeping problems, in the last few days, I've been feeling kind of off because I feel like there's something I need to do. So again, there's a need to be a better parent. But I begin believing myself. I begin believing these words that I'm saying. So what you should actually do is, because you are in some way rejecting, bringing that negative judgment of yourself from the subconscious level to the conscious level. In other words, you're afraid. Okay, I'm afraid of being a bad parent. I am afraid of not having enough money to survive. I am afraid of displeasing certain people. Okay, I'm saying all these examples because I want you to hear the words I'm afraid, so they will echo in your own subconscious, and then your own fears will come. A lot of people are afraid of the way people judge them, or the way we're afraid of dying. We're afraid of being sick. We're afraid of the words that are coming out of our mouth. We're afraid of standing in front of an audience. Now, for example, in my case, when we do this exercise, I'm going to go and find a room by myself, and I'm going to say exactly the thing that I'm afraid of, but I'm saying it like it's real. So for example, I'm a bad parent, okay? I'm a very, very bad parent. I am constantly neglecting. I am selfish. I don't have the patience sometimes to make my baby sleep for 2.5 hours. I'm always on the road. Every month I teach another breatharian retreat somewhere in the world. So I'm not close to my baby, and I feel like I'm neglecting her. And I feel like some of the energy that I have, she doesn't eat, because the energy that we have at home is an energy of non-eaters. And then my wife thinks that there's a problem with the baby, and she blames herself. So I say all these things out loud. Okay, so I am making these things. I am admitting to being that thing. Now, what's going to happen? And again, you can use all the different fears that you have in your life. So I'm ugly. Okay, I'm not a beautiful person. I'm a failure. When you say these things, and not talking about manifesting them, what happens is that from the place of fear, that you didn't want to admit it, that it was sitting and cultivating negative energy. And on the astral plane, by the way, something really big happens. We won't go into that. But you're cultivating negative energy. But when you're admitting it, when you're saying it out loud, and you say it with belief until everything is cleansed out of you, then you're going from the subconscious level to the conscious level. And when you're consciously dealing with it, it actually expires. And that's the beautiful thing. So you're in some way, you didn't want to get the sensation that you're doing something bad. You didn't want to admit that you are less than perfect, because we want to be the best that we can be in this life. But there's certain things that we're just born with. There's nothing we can do about them. So this really connects to all of the irrational thinking patterns, but only here we have these beliefs, and we can say it out loud, and we can see what changes in our mind. Because when you say that, okay, when you really, you can do this, by the way, in front of a mirror, and you can say, I'm a bad parent. I'm a bad business person. I'm a bad guide. You know something? Because maybe during my retreats, I don't have enough time to go one-on-one with everybody, for example. Or maybe last time when we had this webinar, I made a mistake of, I don't know, trusting Zoom and not checking everything appropriately. And one property didn't work. And I decided to do the meditation before. So I'm admitting my mistake. I'm saying it. I had a problem. By the way, we did this again now. And one of the reasons I did it is so I can deal with that fear, because I don't want to be attached to any fear in my life. So I was talking to my team, and I told them, look, I don't want to do this anymore. If, because as a very spiritual person, you think that somebody's leaving you a hint of you shouldn't do it. And I have been energetically attacked many times because of the things that I do. Or because I'm trying to change humanity, or elevating the frequency of the planet, or helping the ascension process and waking up the light workers. So I do get attacked, and I do have fears, but when I'm saying it out loud, and when I'm facing them, I'm dealing with them, I become much stronger. Because obviously, that fear wouldn't have been created in my mind. A circumstance wouldn't have been created unless it was for me to learn something, to overcome something, to overcome an obstacle, and to become better. Because this is just a game of escalation. We are like a muscle. A muscle either escalates, becomes stronger when we practice and we work it, or it degenerates. In other words, there's no middle point. It's either that you're practicing and moving on and forward, or you're going down. And we have a lot of phases in our life that we're usually moving up, and sometimes we take 2 steps back in order to achieve 10 steps forward. I see this a lot with my students, with my participants as well. I see this in every time that we have to take 2 steps back to realize something, to change something. For example, quitting a job until we get something more exciting. Leaving a relationship and feeling heartbroken for a while until we understand that we did it in order to face something, to learn what we really do want in life, and then move forward. So this whole exercise is really about moving things from the subconscious level, where we're not admitting that they are there, and moving them to the conscious level, where we can admit and let go of them. The same thing happens, especially for men, which are more indifferent on the emotional body. So women have a tendency to go up and down. Again, it's a tendency. It's not a generalization. It's just a feminine thing. And men have the tendency to completely ignore the emotion and push them down to a place that they can't even see it. Now, when you, I don't know if you've ever seen the Dalai Lama. I've seen to a few lectures, or if you ever had a friend that is a monk or traveled in India and things like that. The beautiful thing is that because there's almost no ego, they immediately move the emotion from the subconscious to the conscious. In other words, when we are Westerns and we go into an argument about I am right, you're wrong, stuff like that, we don't face the emotion itself. The emotion can be jealousy. The emotion can be a struggle to think that we might be wrong in some way. But when you talk to a monk or someone like that, you notice that they do it immediately. So they observe the emotion. They're like, wait a second, what's going on in my mind? They do this all in 1 second. They observe the emotion, say, oh, I'm jealous. Nice. I'm sad. Wow, amazing. And then they admit it. And when you admit it, it just disappears by itself. You solve the problem where you stand, and you're not taking this into a trauma that you're going to carry all your life with, okay? Some people carry the trauma of choosing the wrong type of parents. Some people carry the trauma of choosing the wrong partner that has neglected them, that has cheated on them, that did something wrong. And then we never really face it. It becomes, again, a mental filter, an irrational thinking pattern that we carry on forever. And then the next partner that we find, it's either that we do the exact same thing, but if we've learned something, we find the person that is complete opposite of the one thing that we were troubled with. So if the last relationship didn't give me enough time for myself, this relationship is going to give me first time for myself, and then everything else, according to the properties and the parameters of whatever it is that we actually wanted. Good. So this ends the discussion of the irrational thinking patterns. I'm going to send you guys, everybody that signed up in the email list, I'm going to send you guys this document that I wrote. And I'm going to send you guys maybe the recording of this as well, just so you have it. Although many people don't see the recording itself if they've been alive, because I prefer to be live with someone, especially when I'm teaching, because there's many things that are going beyond the words. It's not only the expression of the mind, but there's also like a sort of a frequency. Plus, there's the excitement that you get a lot of people with you or from all over the world. Because I know, something, I have a poll here of where you're from. Let's see. And it says, where are you from? USA, Canada, Europe, Australia, UK, or other? And I want to see how many people. I know the statistics of people who are following me on YouTube. It's USA, Canada, UK, and then Australia. Australia, I'm surprised that there's 2 people from Australia. It's the middle of the night there. So that's kind of cool. 16 of 25, and we have I don't know how many more people watching on the YouTube on the stream. So most people from Europe. Europe is right now evening, Saturday evening, right? And USA and Canada is the noon of Saturday. Awesome. So what I want you guys to do, what we're going to do is not a meditation, but it's something that does require you just to visualize. Okay, this is an exercise that I got from Bashar. If you guys have watched some of my material or some of the workshops that I have online, you know that I've been following Bashar for the better part of about 15 years. You can say that Bashar is sort of like an alien or an entity that has physical form but guides humanity and is more mental. In other words, it's more about thinking and understanding things from a logical perspective than it is about feeling and opening just the gate of the heart. Now, I know most of my followers are people who are connecting more with my type of energy, which is opening things from the mental body. First, we want to understand that something is possible, and then we want to achieve it, and then we will feel. Now, there's nothing wrong because there's 2 gates. There's the gate of the mind, there's the gate of the heart. People who are a gate of the heart, for example, if you guys are listening to channeling sessions, then Kryan is a gate of the heart. It means that every conversation with Kryan gives it is at least 30 minutes. He will talk a lot about the way he feels, a lot about the way that we are going to feel when we pass the void. But people who are more like Bashar, people who are more like me, we talk a little bit faster, we download things immediately, but we try to understand it and simplify things from the analogic or logical point of view. So this exercise is called the Parallel Universes Manifestation Exercise. You can do this quite a lot. It has to do with the world of manifestation. So we're talking about our beliefs, our subconscious, but it's also something that has to do with energy. So 2 words before we begin this is, when we manifest something, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but the people who are more successful on the planet are not the people who are the smartest. It's the people who are more persistent and the people who believe in themselves the most. In other words, I'll try and I'll try and I'll try until I succeed one day. So I believe I'm like Edison with 1,000, I don't know if you know that Edison, before he invented the light, He went through 1,000 failures. Now, I don't know about you guys. I would go through 10 failures and I would stop, probably. So again, in order to manifest something, we need to be in a certain vibration. It's an energetic vibration, but this energetic vibration starts from the mind. So the people who are more successful are the people who believe that they should, believe that they deserve. That's why, for example, a person that is born into a family of people who are successful or are more wealthy, then he's born and raised with these already beliefs that he deserves more than others. Another example, did you know that people that are taller statistically make more money? Statistically, I'm tall, I'm 6'4". I have a deep voice. I'm a very convincing type of person. Now, the reason for this is that when a person that is taller comes to work, people immediately, because they're subconscious, we have the mammal brain, we immediately treat them like they are a person of authority in some way. If they have a deeper voice, it's easier to listen to them. Okay, for example, I don't know if you've ever seen Tony Robbins on stage. He has a very deep and convincing voice. The guy is like 6'5". He's like, he's tall as me. He's white as a refrigerator, and he has this deep voice when he talks like this. And I have a friend. He's a friend of a friend, and I know that he practices, by the way, a lot. And he doesn't speak the whole day before an event because he always yells and curses and gets everybody like excited and things like that. So when we are talking about manifestation, we're talking about a belief, which is a thought, and we're talking about an emotion, which is the excitement, the love we have for this, the wanting it, energizing it. So the thought creates the clarity of what it is that we actually want to achieve, and the emotion energizes it, fuels it up, pumps it up. And if you guys enjoy this, in the email that you're going to receive, I'm going to give you a few, let's say a few subjects or a few titles of the things that we can talk about the next time. And then you can choose one of them, and I'll go for the one that most people just chose. So let's begin. I want you all to close your eyes. Start relaxing from everything that we just learned. I want you to take one very, very long breath from your nose. Feel that you are breathing in prana, coming all the way from infinity above, relaxing the body. Relax your muscles, your eyes, your jaw, and just go to your mind. Now, I want you to think about one thing that you want to manifest. It can be a thought. You can have a description of what it is that you want, like a word. It can be an object. It can be a person. It can be a character change in yourself. Anything that you want, just one thing, okay? And I want you to remove the description. And I want you to feel that one thing only as an energy and a vibration. So you don't have it visual, you feel it. Now that you feel that one thing, I want you to feel the opposite. How is the energetic vibration of not having that one thing that you really want to have in your life, that you want to manifest? An object, a person, a character change, abundance, anything. How does the lack of not having it feel to you as a vibration and as an energetic vibration? And now completely forget about this. And I want you to imagine that there is another universe, a parallel universe that is absolutely identical in every way to this universe. Everything is exactly the same. The only change is that in that parallel universe that exists as a potential, you have that one thing that you really desire, that thing that you want to manifest. Not only that you have it, I want you to see how it changes your life, how it changes your attitude, how you have of that vibration that you imagined that you felt before. How does your day-to-day life changes? How is your relationship changes with yourself? How do you wake up in the morning maybe a little bit different? Everything is exactly the same. It's a parallel universe, identical to this one, only you are living that thing that you want to manifest in any way. And now that you see the differences between your universe and that universe, I want you to meet the other you, the parallel you, in your mind, and I want you to request permission to copy their vibration, their existence, their knowledge, their understanding of how it feels like to have that thing as a vibration to your body. Now, you can visualize it that you're giving them a hug. You can visualize that you're putting your hand on their shoulders and they're happy. They are you. They are you that has achieved something, manifested something that you are lacking right now. So you're giving a copy gift to yourself in some way. And I want you to feel that it's moving, that vibration, that energy is moving to your body. You're slowly receiving more and more of it until you're becoming so full of it, there's almost no distinction between you and the parallel you. You're becoming more and more identical. You can feel this moving like love, like energy that is moving, becoming a part of your DNA. Feel as your cells are changing to vibrate in a new frequency, that you that has that thing that you want. Breathe into this process, give yourself that hug until you feel that you are a complete copy, a 100% complete copy of the parallel you. And then you can thank yourself. You understand that the parallel universes have merged into one. And with your eyes still closed, I want you to ask yourself one very simple question. Has the sensation of a lack, of not having that one thing, has it changed even a little bit? And you can open your eyes. Now, I already know what the answer is. And I already know why it happens. It happens because in order to change something, we have to begin the change within ourselves. So if we want to become better people, we have to start believing and acting like we already are. So it's sort of like a game of fake it till you make it without actually making the lie. But when we're going and we're putting an intention, when we're joining a spiritual guide online, because we want to make something better from ourselves, we want to know more, we want to experience more, we want to take the human existence and just squeeze as much out of it. Okay, that's the intention, that's the pure intention. Now, when we do this exercise, we're intending, first we're giving ourselves clarity to our mind of what it is that we actually want. And then that gives the subconscious the option to tell our guidance the potential futures of making that thing happen without trying to tell the universe how to make it happen for us. What we're doing is we're creating an energetic vibration that is somehow the thing that we want, and we're slowly copying it. Now, you will notice that the universe will, there's a sentence that says the universe will conspire to manifest the things that are hidden in our heart. So it doesn't matter if it's a thought, or it doesn't matter if it's an emotion that we have. If it's a fear, if it's a positive thing, the universe will try to make it because it's only a mirror. It only reflects back our strongest beliefs in ourselves. So we have the rays, we have the control over our chariot, only we completely forget about it all the time, and we prefer to blame other people, blame circumstances, blame ourselves for not being good enough, having irrational thinking patterns like we just practiced and things like that. So if you do this, the parallel universes manifestation exercise, you will, over time, you're going to notice that you have a little bit more of that vibration, and a little bit more of that vibration, and a little bit more of that vibration, until one day you won't need to do this exercise anymore. It will just happen naturally. Now, we use this, for example, when we're doing the different breatharian initiations. So we use exercises like this to start changing the concept and the belief of a person that really requires more food, until a state that the mind changes. There's a switch that occurs in the belief system, and then the body actually starts receiving energy from the outside. It can be from trees. It can be from the mind itself. It can be from breathing in the beginning, which is sort of like the training wheels, especially for young people who do this type of retreats. But when you do this, you can do anything, okay? I know a lot of people, obviously, you know, we're in the I want more than I am. A lot of people want more abundance, especially spiritual seekers, which have a few very, very limiting beliefs about abundance. Less is more, money is the source of all problems, and then our subconscious hears that and it doesn't really want. So a lot of people, what they want first is abundance because we have some sort of trouble. But you can use this for other things. How about simplicity, okay, in our life? How about just love and respect for ourselves? How about a process of forgiveness with our parents or with people who have hurt us? We can really imagine it and actually do the work on the astral plane, because the consciousness is developed in a way that it's always splitted. When we are here, we're in the 3D. When we are sleeping or meditating, we're moving to the astral planes. We are solving problems there. When we get dreams, it's actually because we're getting the things that happen during our night shift, when our consciousness moved into a higher dimension or a higher vibration, experience something and tries to bring us that knowledge of what it experienced, and our body and our mind actually translate that into symbols, people that we met. That's why dreams are so confusing. So our consciousness constantly shifts up and down and up and down. And when we use this, we're actually shifting up, copying an energy form, moving it into our body and becoming something a little bit different. And every time we practice, it's a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more, until one day we kind of like say, you know something, I have everything that I need. Thank you very much, universe. From now on, I completely trust my spirit and my guide to bring me the right synchronicities, the right people, the right circumstances, to everything that I actually need. This has been fun, my friends. And I'm going to conclude by telling you, I love all of you. It's nice to see so many familiar faces. Thank you very much for watching this. I'm going to send another one. I think I'm traveling to, I'm going snowboarding for a week, and then I'm coming back, and then I'm going to teach in Los Angeles and then in Peru for about a month. I'll try to squeeze another one of these sessions while I'm out there. If anybody, by the way, is interested in making one of these retreats, in Peru, we're going to have ayahuasca, and then the retreat itself, and then afterwards, we're going to go to the Machu Picchu, the whole group. And if anybody wants to come to LA, we still have a few seats open. It's going to be in a really cool place. And just check out raymaor.com. I'll write it down here. Or you can just reply to my email and tell me which one of the events you want to come, and I'll send you guys to the right coordinator to see if there's availability and that you actually fit the requirements that we have for someone that is coming to such a life-changing event. So, my friends, thank you very much for giving me from the one thing that I know is the most precious in our life, which is your amazing time. I love you all. And I don't know, you have a beautiful day, beautiful evening, beautiful morning, wherever you are in the world. Or good morning for the Australians, good afternoon for the Americans, and good night for the Europeans. Bye.